Hey, everybody, welcome back to episode 49 of the Mosaic podcast. This is fabulous for me because 3 months ago, I didn't even have a podcast. And so I love this idea of just meeting strangers. The woman that I'm about to introduce you today, from the outside, is a complete stranger. But somehow from the moment I read about her and saw about her, I found out about her from a podcast company that says these people want to be on podcasts and these are podcasts that are available. I said, I have to have this woman on my show. I have to invite her and hopefully she'll come on. And she just did. And there was an immediate connection that we didn't even speak to each other yet. But I felt immediately connected to the work that she's doing, to who she is as a human being. And what I love about the show is it allows me the opportunity to try and understand how that even happens by the conversations we have. It'll fill in a lot of some of those spaces of why I felt it, but it's not even important to know. So I have the honor today of meeting with you for the first time, Patty Dominguez. And she's the founder of a company called Positioning to Profit. She helps small business owners establish their category of one status. And that's really what I'm dying to talk with her about, is this whole idea of category of one. She believes true expert positioning is comprised. She believes true expert positioning is comprised of two parts. The external, which is following a proven framework, and the internal, aligning at the core to who you are. Because your business results will always meet your identity. Patty, it's an honor to welcome you to the Mosaic podcast.
Danny, thank you so much. It's such an honor and a privilege. And when you reached out to me that fateful day, I was so excited because your email resonated with me so deeply. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And then I went on your podcast and I love the classical high vibration music at the beginning. And I said, I love it. This is going to be a good one. So I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for reaching out because I know it's going to be a good time.
It already is. I'm excited.
It already is.
So
that's
tell
right.
me what about that email. And I never do this, but tell me what about that email resonated with you so much, if you can remember.
It was just I just believe that there are no mistakes. And the way that you said what you said was in such a gracious manner that your whole intention is to serve your people, your tribe, your followers, your raving fans. And I resonate because it's coming from a framework of giving and not getting. Yeah. And that's the one thing that I recognize is that when you give authentically, you're going to get everything you want. But It's in that giving that we find our purpose. And that's what really resonated with me.
I love that. And I'm going to reframe it a little bit from my perspective. That doesn't mean that you have to change anything in your perspective at all. Because for most of my life, I gave and gave and gave with no thought of receiving anything and even no desire. I would talk to people. I just had a conversation prior to this, and I was talking to someone, and I said, I used to have conversations like this and say to people, you just need to find someone you trust. And I'm not, this is not a sales call, so I'm not even in the running here. And people would say, but I want to work with you. And I would say, yeah, but I'm not taking clients right now because I'm not, and I would literally shut down the receiving part of it just because it was so important for me to give. Mm-hmm. And there's something beautiful in the sense of putting out this energy that is a full circle. For those seeing in video, you can see that like there's a giving energy, and then that giving energy is met by the receiving energy, which is then met by the giving energy. And there's a give and take in everything. But it's not a take as much as a receive. Like I don't like that term give and take. I like the word give and receive. Mm-hmm. And I think when you open, it allows more energy to come through the conversation. How do you feel? I think that's what you're saying also, right?
I resonate with that absolutely, because that's what it is. It's almost like the reciprocity of life is perfect. And so you just know that to give, you will receive by the very nature of the way this whole thing works, so you don't even have to worry about it.
So I'm going to even change that a little. So push me back, okay?
Yeah.
Because I find that when I give with the thought that I know that I will receive, I sometimes don't. But when I give just because for the sheer joy of giving, but I'm open to whatever receiving happens. Then receiving comes sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. But I'm okay, because if it doesn't come in that moment, I know it'll. I believe it'll come somewhere else. I think we're saying similar things. I don't want to get caught in semantics. It's just a slight. I find that sometimes a 2 millimeter shift in our belief systems changes our complete direction.
Yes. Yes, and because I love improv, so I want to yes and you. Yes, and the fact of the matter is, when you get out of what you think it's supposed to look like and just trust that it's going to be, that it's going to happen, like, don't overthink it, get in your left brain about it. Just know that it's going to look maybe not like what you think, and it doesn't matter. So just have that knowingness
Yeah.
that you are going to, right? It's just the
Yeah.
laws, the
Yeah.
universe.
I'm working with a woman now who's actually become my coach, and someone I really believe in. Her name is Sarah McCrum, and she wrote a book called Love Money, Money Loves You. And some of the work she's doing with me now is just with this whole idea of just letting go of everything that is in my mind, everything that I think is the way the world works, letting go of everything that I thought I believed, and just allowing this fresh new energy to come in, and just allowing that energy to take us wherever it wants. And so it's very similar to what I think you just said, which is just just don't worry about how it's going to happen. Don't overthink it. Don't do all that stuff. And I love it. So already we went, I didn't even get to where I was starting. I wanted to start with you, but we're already like lock in.
Good.
Are you okay with where we are?
I love it. I love this conversation because we can absolutely think about the different ways in which we operate and really recognize that we get in our own way when all we want innately is to grow. We want to know that we matter. We want to grow. We want to experience things. And in the simplicity of what your coach is telling you, just be, because that's really the answer. It's just be.
Yeah, be. It's even more, to me, it's just empty. Just be empty, become empty. Just like I be all the time, but I'm caught up in my processes of the thought processes that I have. And I think that's me being, I think that I be a certain way, and that's who I be. This I love because it's just like, okay, that's who you have been. Let's just push that aside for a minute. Swipe left, not swipe right, because I guess that's a dating site or whatever.
I guess so.
So swipe whichever way is not the dating site for right now, and allow. For me, it's allowing myself to see what's there when I don't look at what I normally look at, and I just empty myself and say, okay, no interference. I'm just open to receive what's coming, and I find that what's coming. It just depends how long I believe it's going to take for that to happen. Sometimes it comes instantaneously. Sometimes it takes a few months. Sometimes, but when I open myself up to that process and I get the other stuff out of the way, it's all right there in front of me, waiting for me. I just have to walk into it and receive it. Yes. So, okay, let's segue a minute.
Sure.
The only question, only two questions I always ask. The first one is, what did your parents do?
My dad was a car painter by trade, and my mom was a factory worker. So I come from a very blue collar family, and they were from Central America. My dad passed away about 3 years ago. No, it'll be 4 years in March. And it was he transitioned. It's 4 years in March. And one of the most fascinating things was they had such a vision for us, the American dream, my brother and I, for us to go to school, to get a good job, and buy a house. It was a simple process. And so what they did for me, I would say, is support me in being who I have always, for me to do anything that I wanted to do. So their big thing was like, you can pick whatever career you want. They never really had huge expectations, like you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor. It was never anything like that. It was very nuanced. They just wanted to be there to support. And they thought that having a Catholic education was really important because my parents are very, very Catholic. They're very Catholic. And that was an experience in and of itself. But what I really came to realize, I put this pressure on myself to do more, right? To do and do. And I went to school and I was a very good student, and I went to college, and I got my MBA and all these things that I did because I really wanted to make them proud. But again, it was really interesting because there was never any big expectation on their end. They just wanted to make sure that I did the most that I could with the opportunities I had. So they're very supportive.
Fabulous. Unpack that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's so almost counterintuitive, but so wise. When I hear what you're saying, because so many parents push and push and push their kids, and you got to get good grades, and you got to do this, and
yes.
But they didn't do that to you. They just held the space for you to be happy doing whatever. You didn't say be happy, but to find what it is that you wanted to do. And in doing that, you developed into this person that wanted to make them proud of you. And you took the responsibility to get good grades, to get yourself to excel, to get yourself. How did that happen? If you can, because I bet there are people listening that have kids that are thinking about how am I raising my kids, that grew up with parents that pushed them, that grew up with parents that weren't available to them. Unpack that for me a little if you can.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I was a kid in the 80s, and I was a latchkey kid because my parents worked a lot of hours, and I've always just been really independent, an independent thinker and independent in the way that I operate. So to answer your question, I think a little bit of that is innate. Because my brother is very independent as well, but he wasn't necessarily as driven as I am, or I always was. And I think the driven side of it came because of the environment that I was in. So I went to Catholic school. This is absolutely a part of my entire story. I went into grammar school speaking only Spanish.
Wow.
And back then there weren't any ESL, English as a second language programs. And at the same time, especially in Catholic school, right? So their thing was, we want to provide, quote unquote, the best education that we can for you. So with much sacrifice, they said, hey, this is what we can do. Now, going into school, I was probably one of the only, ethnic children, the only minority there. It was primarily Irish Catholic neighborhood where I grew up. And what was really interesting is that going into kindergarten, I came to understand very quickly that the authority was the priests and the nuns, or were the priests and the nuns. So they were the ones that ruled the roost. And I remember very clearly, it's a very significant point in my life, is I wet my pants one time because I was sitting, and we were supposed to be sitting, quote unquote, Indian style. That's what they call it. Now they call it like a pretzel. Right. And it was story time. And I was like, bouncing up and down because I wanted to go to the bathroom, but I didn't go when I was supposed to. And as a result, I wet my pants, and the nun thought at the time the way to reprimand me was to put me in front of the class with my soaked pants, and everybody was laughing. So wow. Those were the kind of things that you soon came to realize. I then was, of course, crying, embarrassed, and I just wanted my mom. Well, when my mom showed up, again, English being her second language, and her growing up in an orphanage with nuns, she said, oh, my daughter did wrong. So she wow. spanked me all the way home. And I remembered that moment like, oh, I am not safe. I can't go to my mom with these types of things. I have to protect myself.
Wow.
And growing up inner city, again, Irish Catholic neighborhood, being one of the only minorities, I got picked on a lot because I was different. Yeah. So you kind of environmentally come to say, okay, I got to do this whole thing on my own, And what was really interesting, and what caused me a lot of torture and grief growing up, became the biggest gift, of course, as it always is. Because going into first grade, again, English being my second language, we had to go around in a circle and read out loud. And a very significant moment happened when it was my turn to read and I couldn't get the words out. And the priest at the time, he would hit me every day all
Wow.
the time. Yeah, just, physical abuse and emotional abuse. And as a result, I developed a horrible stutter. I could not say my name.
Wow.
It was like hard blocks, horrible blocking. I say I was a walking thesaurus because I would avoid words, situations, and all of these things. And the interesting thing was that my name is Patty Dominguez, because I've always kept my name. And I couldn't say words with P's, D's, T's, W's,
Wow.
B's, so many letters of the alphabet. So I would create situations where I didn't have to speak, even though I was a really big extrovert.
Wow.
So think about the irony there.
Wow.
But what I now see as like such huge gifts in my life has led me to everything that I do today, which is so interesting. But it was a way of growing up in which I said, okay, I got to figure this out on my own. I need to get ahead on my own. And I have to, because growing up, again, as being one of the only minorities, I was like, no, I'm going to be the same as those kids. I always saw myself as less than, but I never saw myself as not capable of going beyond what I thought was possible. Because even going in high school, they said to me, you could be a file clerk or a
Wow.
secretary.
Wow.
Again, the interesting Catholic education I received.
Wow.
And in my head, without anybody telling me, I knew that that wasn't accurate. I
Wow.
was like, no, I want to, in my head, I thought back then, I was like, I want to own my own advertising agency. What are you talking about?
Right. Right.
And isn't that interesting? Like, how did I innately know that I was capable of more? And that's the thing, is I wish I knew I could bottle that up, because there's so many kids that maybe don't have those things, or that are told or berated or said, you're nothing, you're stupid, you're dumb, and this and that. And they really believe it. And it breaks my heart, because at the end of the day, it's all within ourselves to say yes or absolutely not. It's
Wow.
fascinating.
Well, I love how a conversation starts off in a certain way and then wraps around to understand why the converse. Like I never go into dialogue with people before I ask that first question,
Yeah.
but today I did, and as we're unpacking it, it makes so much sense what we said before, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
this whole idea of just, if we would be able to let go of what the world has taught us we are,
Exactly.
that we've started to believe we are, and just let the silence of who we are speak to us, what would it actually say to us? And
Mm-hmm.
and so I can't help but imagine, and I'm going to ask you to enlighten me on some of this,
Mm-hmm.
because you said along the way, isn't it interesting that the thing that was the most difficult to me became the biggest gift? But
Mm-hmm.
you crossed a bridge without us knowing where the other side. So I want you to, if you would, tell me what that gift was. I think I know it because I've done some research on you, and I've sort of looked up and Googled it. But for those people who are listening to you in my channel for the first time and don't know who you are, what was the gift that happened from that situation of feeling excluded, feeling like a minority, feeling like you weren't as good as, feeling like you weren't the same as everybody else, feeling like that happened? What was, where did that bridge take you to, and what was the gift it took you to?
Yeah, it's a packed question, isn't it? Because one of the things that was probably the biggest, Achilles, or the biggest, the thing that would cause me the most stress and misery and self-doubt, was everything to do with the fact that I just couldn't talk. My stuttering was so bad. And I, in high school, had 2 jobs, and I paid for my own speech therapy. So I had the good fortune of being in Chicago, or I grew up in Chicago. And of course, nearby, there's so many different types of opportunities, right? So I'm like, who has the best speech pathology program? Again, my parents they didn't know any of this. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to Northwestern in Evanston, which is really close to where I used to live. And they had a speech pathology program, and it was with the students that were learning fluency shaping, which is the thing that helps you to overcome your stutter. But they said, okay, you're you're still a stutterer. And in my head, I was like, well, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose if I'm claiming the identity of a stutterer? And I mean, literally, I was 18 when this was happening. And how did I know intuitively to know that, you know?
Yeah.
And
Pause
it
for a
was,
minute. How did you know that? Like, answer that question for us.
it didn't resonate with me. I'm like, if the thing is, I'm trying to get beyond being a stutterer, why would I say I'm a stutterer?
Right. But
I just didn't understand
where
that.
did that knowledge come from? And don't lose the story, but I just want
Yeah.
to drill down here, because I think inherent in what you're saying is such a key for people, because the identity that they create for themselves because other people give it to them sometimes goes against what we believe, but we sometimes don't have the courage of our belief to say that doesn't fit. So I
Well, how
want to know
does it feel? I would say, how does it feel? And to me, it didn't feel right. So I'm very intuitive and like, what feels right, right? And that's the one thing that my mom always taught us. She's like, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it,
great.
right? If you get invited to a party and it doesn't feel like you want to go, don't do it, right? If that job doesn't feel right, get out of it. So I've always just been I've been taught to be very intuitive about how I feel about things. So that whole disclaimer of like, you're still a stutter, I was like, that doesn't feel right to
Right.
me. And it
But
was
it
very
almost even
expensive.
traces back, excuse me for it almost traces
Yeah.
back to even your stuttering almost didn't feel right to you. And you want to get
100%.
out of that too, right?
Yes, yes. Because this is a great point that you're making, because when the
You were
therapist
actually making it. I was just highlighting.
when the therapist asked me, I'll never forget, she's like, how do you feel? And I said, you know how I feel? I feel like a giant in chains. Like I have so much to say and I can't get it out. And this is the thing that causes me so much unhappiness, because I know I'm better than this. I know I have the ability to do more. And so long story short, it helped me mildly, but it wasn't really the thing. So in my career, I went to college, I graduated, and I said, I want to work for a big company, because again, that's what would make my parents proud. And I got a job at a big company, and the higher the ladder I went, the more responsibility there is. And I had such a huge fear of public speaking. I mean, huge, huge. Because could you imagine
Of
me being
course.
on stage and not being able to speak, like just blocking, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, this situation happened where I said, okay, I can only get up to a certain level in my career. And if I want to be a team leader or be some kind of in a supervisory role, I have to get out there more. And I was looking and looking, and it wasn't until I came across the American Speech Association did a newsletter expose on a gentleman who said that he had helped people overcome their stutter. I was like, okay, you have my attention. And he is from the UK, and he taught this modality. He's passed away since, but it was a combination of hypnosis and NLP, neuro linguistic programming. And at the time, I was now in my early 30s. I was pregnant 8 months, and I remember just started crying. I was like, I can't fly to North Carolina, and he's only going to be here this one weekend. And I have all these things that I want to do for my career, and I feel like I'm not going to get the chance. So my husband, still married, he said to me, you know what, I'll drive you there. And I was like, really? Because we had a toddler that was a year and a half old. I'm at 8 months pregnant. This program is 7 days, total immersion. And I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, let's do it. And I just remember feeling so much gratitude. And I went, and that is the moment in 2003 that just switched everything for me. And it all had to do with what I believed at an identity level, reconciling those things in my subconscious of what had happened and reprogramming them. And more importantly, not giving into the fear and the shame, because that's very low vibration, of saying that I had this stutter. And it would cause me so much grief. And just really recognizing that and just putting myself out there more and stepping into who I always knew innately that I was meant to be. And that's what I do now that I help my clients with. That why I say that's such a beautiful segue, because it's all at an identity level that you can help someone, because you can have the best framework, learn from the best coaches, but if you do not believe and all the work starts internally first, your identity will always bring you back down to that reality that you believe in of yourself. I don't care who you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for all of that. And there's so much in that. And as you were speaking, I couldn't help just smile and be grateful for you coming into my life right now also.
Ditto.
Because I'm about to set out on a 1-year journey across America. And my goal is to film the people who don't feel heard.
That's so beautiful.
And I used to think that they were just the downtrodden. They were the homeless or the people that don't have a voice, that didn't feel they were a voice, or were told to shut up as kids because what they were going to say doesn't matter, or that they didn't feel like they mattered.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized the other day as I was sitting talking to my wife, she was talking to me and I answered something to her and she said, "You didn't hear a word I said, did you?" And I said, "Well, I thought I did, but tell me." She said, "No, you're not listening to me." It's husbands and wives who have conversations with each other where we don't really listen. It's my kid who goes to school and he's a round peg that they try and put into a square hole because they only know how to deal with kids in square pegs and square holes. And that works for 75, 80% of the people. And it's just good enough to get their test scores. So they say, well, you just have to deal with it on your own. It's the employees and companies that I work with who don't trust each other enough to be able to speak up because they don't have the level of trust to say what they honestly feel. Mm-hmm. And it's the CEOs in companies who feel lonely at the top, who don't trust that if they let people know who they actually are, that they will still command the respect and have the respect. And if they're vulnerable, people will still like them. So the idea now is to go around the country first to see if I can. I'm 60, almost 65. I'm leaving the day after my 65th birthday. I'm going to leave May 1st. My birthday's April 29th, so 2 days after.
That's cool.
And I have to see if I have the wherewithal to live this nomadic lifestyle that I lived when I was 18. And if I do, then I want to then continue and go around the world and do it around the world.
That's brilliant.
And I want to make a documentary of that, to hear what it is that people would say if they could actually say what they really wanted to say and what they feel prevents them from doing that. And so, like, even in your situation, look at what you developed because people told you couldn't, because you grew up with a stutter, and then all the rules and the things that they put on you that made you stop believing you could say what you wanted to say, even though you had so much you wanted to say.
Yeah.
Right? So I definitely want to have under separate cover a conversation where I film it with you and we have this conversation, because I wasn't even thinking of people who stuttered. But there's a whole nother category of people that can't say what they want to say.
That's right. Very true.
So what's been the scariest thing that's happened to you through this process?
I would say the scariest thing that I realize now is that we only have two things that matter in life, is time and energy. And I can't tell you how much time I spent overthinking things instead of innately, leaning into things. So two things, time and energy. We have no control over time, but we have control over our energy.
So go back to, like, I love you, okay? And I love what you're trying to say, but I don't want to have it be a we statement as much as a me statement. I want to know what scares you. Like,
Yeah.
what literally, like, what about time and energy actually scares you? And not that what we as a people do, because that becomes a teaching moment, which I get, and it's powerful. Mm-hmm. But I want to know, I want to translate it personally.
Yeah, time. Time for me scares me because all the times that I have been overthinking or spinning or what are they going to think? Okay. Putting myself out there in fear of judgment, or who is she to do this? And the time that I wasted looking back scares me because we only have that finite amount of time. And so now I have this sense of urgency that I'm going to go out there boldly, unabashedly, unapologetically to be who I am, because guess what? We all have gifts to share, and I have my gifts to share. And being okay with, it's not going to connect with everybody. There's going to be people that don't like me, and that's okay. So just the fear of wasting time is a big one for me.
What would you do with the time that you wasted if you could have it back?
If I could talk to my 25-year-old self again, I would say, don't be so hard on yourself. Do what you love, because if these ideas are coming through you, they're meant to be yours to do. Because if you don't do it, I believe in the universe. Universe is going to find another container, if you will.
Yeah.
And so it was just that a lot of the self-doubt, that thing, even though I was very independent and thought and, ballsy in the way that I would do things, I still had a lot of self-doubt, and even when I left my big corporate job, because that's pretty ballsy, I turned down a promotion. I gave back my stock options in 2013. People literally thought I was crazy. And I said, I just can't do this. I can't be a part of the matrix anymore. I want to go out on my own. And I've been out on my own for 7 years, and just refining my message and putting myself out there, because I played a lot of comparison, like, oh, she's so much better than me because of this, this, and that. And I kept looking at external things as like, oh, if I get this, then I'll be better. Just time. I wasted so much time.
Yep.
When instead I could have looked within and just say, you know what, I am enough and I can do this. And through this process, as long as you give authentically and in integrity, it's going to work. And if it doesn't, what's the lesson?
Yep.
So time. I wasted time.
So what was that moment that happened for you that made you stop wasting time? What was that moment where you realized, hold it, I could do this for the rest of my life, but I can't do it for the rest of my life?
Yeah, I think it's when the mentor that I'm working with, he said, when are you going to stop making it about you and asking how good you are instead of really focusing on who you can serve? So is it more important for you to stay stuck in your head and stuck in your ways and having everything to be, or like having this need for everything to be just perfect? Is that more important than who you can serve and who you can impact and the lives that you can change by having people show up authentically in their own way? What's more important, Patty?
Yeah.
Well, that did it.
And okay, and I'm gonna like dive down if I can, and just tell me you just shut up and okay. One of the reasons why I'm going on this trip is that I hope in the love of humanity, I'll discover my own love. In the hatred of the voices that I hear, I'll understand the hatred of my own voice. I think about sitting with white supremacists, and it just chills me to the bone to know that I even have the courage to sit with them, let alone love them. But it's not their voice that I fear. It's that voice in me that is their voice that I haven't reconciled with, if it exists at all. But I'm assuming it exists somewhere, because the fact that it scares me means that there's something in me that I don't see yet. And I want to sit with them so that I can understand my own voice. So, long introduction to an easy question, I hope. In the goodness that you're going to do for people, and that allows you to get out of their own way, of your own fear and perfectionism, what is the good that you're hoping to do for yourself in that same moment? What does their goodness remind you about your own goodness? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yes, I absolutely do. So for me, it's when I can see the potential in somebody else so clearly, so very clearly, and I can help them open the path, what I call the success gap, right? Where they're starting out and where they want to be is there's a bridge. And if I can help with the stepping stones to help get you there, the fulfillment that I get from that is just, that brings me supreme joy, because I've helped them carve out that path, right? The clear line of sight, the stepping stones. It's not like I'm magic. It's just like you're shifting their view ever so slightly and saying, no, look over here. And these are the steps, and you're opening up that path. They still have to do the work, right? But when you open that path and they get to the other side, not only do they gain that fulfillment and the convincers, and then I get that personal joy of saying, wow, I helped that person, right, roll out the vision for what they really want to do in their life. You know, we all have that innate purpose, the Dharma. And if I can help with that, that's it's such a divine appointment in my eyes.
Why is that so important to you? Stick with me, because I feel like
it fulfills me. It fulfills me like nothing else does.
Tell me what that fulfills in you.
The feeling of joy and bliss and love that becomes that awesome energy that I just want more of, because I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
I'm going to let it sit, but here's a statement that somebody said to me that I would love to get your feedback on. Not necessarily right now, because it's a mind-boggling statement, but when she said it to me, it just completely, I went, whoa.
I love those.
Right? And I want to share it with you. She said, everything in life is a reflection of us speaking back to us about us.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm really trying to ask you is to go underneath all the nice things that you're saying and to say to you, what is the reflection of helping someone discover that, find their path that's speaking back to you about you, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, because okay, let's go back to, and I don't know if we said this when we hit the record button or before, but it's like everybody just wants to feel that they matter, right? And I matter when I help people matter.
But do you matter even when you don't help people matter?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
That's the place that I want to rest with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because the I matter when I help you matter is then I have
right.
to
It's
get
conditional.
it.
Right. It's conditional. Yeah.
And so there's such a beauty, because I really want to talk about what you actually do now for people, because I really want to talk, but it was important for me to get to that place.
Yeah.
Where we all realize and understand, because the greatest teaching in the whole world is that we matter, even if what we do doesn't matter to anybody else, but the fact that we do it because it matters to us is why we do it. It's like mom saying, if you don't like it, don't do it. If you don't feel like you matter, then none of what you do matters, really.
Yes. Yes.
And if it's conditional about me thinking that you matter, you changing me so that you can matter, then that's also just, to me, it's just like, pardon me, it's another it's another BS story that we tell ourselves, right? That doesn't mean it's a BS to you. It just would be BS to me. And so I'm interested in this category of one place. Mm-hmm. And there's so many links now that I hear you speak as to how I can understand it, because you felt isolated and alone. You didn't feel like you were a part of everything. Can you see how someone who grew up with all those things going on in themselves would settle on a space of category of one, mm-hmm. which, when I said, what's the gift over the bridge of the blessing that with the curse, all the sadness was from, that's where I thought we were going, mm-hmm. but we didn't quite go there. But I want to see if we can go back there.
Yeah.
Because in the work that you do, which is helping people see that they're category of one, tell me what that means. I have a sense of what it means, but I don't want to I'm going to shut up. You go now.
That's okay. I love it. This is all very mind-bending. This is probably the most mind-bending podcast I've ever been on.
Good.
To be honest with you, which is a very good thing. So to me, one of the gifts, another gift, because there are no mistakes, is that I was in corporate for 18 years and I had the privilege of working with the world's biggest brands that you can think of. And I did that over my tenure. And I was really grateful to have had great experiences in rolling out new products, new, groundbreaking products on a global level. Really, really cool. One of the things that I noticed when I first quit my job is that I used to say, you really got to focus on your branding. The problem that I was having is that people thought that I meant their website or their logo. So more of the visual aspects of branding. And as I was refining my message, I was like, no, that's not what I mean. And I came to really just hone in on this whole positioning thing. Because here's the deal. When I was in corporate, we would sit around in boardrooms with very, very high paid agency strategy people, all kinds of people, brand managers, the whole gamut, very expensive conversations. And we would talk hours and hours and hours about new product introductions, like something as simple as, and I say this, and I started using a visual of a cookie. Imagine a big chocolate chip cookie and imagine hundreds of hours of conversations had about a cookie. Who is this cookie for? And then, deep diving into the psychographic, demographic sentiments, the behavioral aspects of how that cookie would be eaten. Where is the cookie eaten? Who's it for? Is it for the mom? Is she on the go? What is she doing? Right? So all these things for a cookie. And yet we, as solopreneurs, the CEOs of our own small business, we don't take the time to factor this very important step in rolling out our business, which is positioning. Because I believe, foundationally speaking, you have to have this foundational setup of your positioning in place before the website, before the logo, before your offers, before your book, before the online products and your speeches. You need positioning. So I added my twist to it. The identity side of it is that, again, your business results will always meet your identity. So I can give you the best framework in the world of how to set up your positioning. But if you don't believe it innately, if it doesn't start from the inside, you're going to compromise all that work. So my positioning work is both internal and external, that I help specifically small business owners so that you can develop your category of one, because there's 7 billion people in the world plus, and there's only you. Now. Is it 8? 8 billion people. 8 billion. Thank you, Danny. 8 billion. And there's only you, one of you. And what is it that makes you the you? Instead of feeling like, well, I'm a personal trainer and all I could charge is $70 an hour because that's what the market will bear.
Yeah.
When we do that, we commoditize ourselves. We commoditize what it is that we do. And it shows that you're left subject to what the market dictates versus you comprehensively putting your positioning in place in a way that makes you stand out above the rest so that your profit potential is not compromised, so that you're dominating against your competition, so that you're finding that perfect customer that is craving what it is that you do more and more.
Yeah.
And your message is refined so that you're speaking exactly to the person that you want to be speaking to. So that's positioning.
I love that. And I was like, this is where I go when I think of it. Yeah. Because I'm not a competitive, combative, comparative person in general. I'm sort of an inclusive, connector sort of person. But when you stand in a field of a category of one, you do things differently. And so you can't look at a price as the same as someone who does things differently. Mm-hmm. You own your own pricing because no one else is doing it the way you're doing it.
Correct.
Which allows you to not compete with anybody or dominate or destroy or collapse, but it allows you to say, if you want to do it like this is the price you pay because this is what I do. Right?
Correct. It makes the competition irrelevant.
There is no competition because you're in a category of one.
Yes.
And when people will be drawn to that category of one because there's so many people that are doing beautiful things, but are in a category of many. And they compare themselves. I'm not the same. I'm not good enough. How could I ever do this? I don't have a book. I don't have the years of experience. But what they do is, the experience of what they do is so magnificent.
Yes.
That if they would stop worrying about all that, they could charge whatever they want to charge, because there'll be people that will be drawn that would pay 10 times what they think's the highest amount they could ever charge.
Exactly. And that's really the beauty of it, is that you really are in a blue ocean, right? Instead of the bloody shark-filled ocean of massive competition where everybody's clawing for the same customer who, all things considered, is only going to make their decision based on price.
So anybody who's listening now that doesn't go to www.pattydominguez.com, and that will be in the show notes, so I don't have to take time spelling it, I'm going to spank you. I mean, literally, not because I enjoy spanking or violence, but this is so important for people to understand. This is so vital to the success of how you see yourself and how the world sees you, that I can't tell you how important it is to at least have a conversation. I don't know if Patty's taking clients. I'm assuming she is. But if she isn't, just get resources from her, because this idea of what you, of defining yourself in a field that is your own to play in, that will draw those people that love who you are and want to play in your field with you so they can create fields of their own that they can play in, is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you, Danny. And it comes back to, I tested out this whole thing with the cookie. Like, come on, guys, we're doing this for a cookie. Do you understand the millions and millions of dollars that these very sophisticated companies are doing it? And yet we don't do that for ourselves.
Totally.
There's something inherently missing. Fundamentally, people are so focused on the red shiny object tactics. Like, should I be on Snapchat? Should I be on this? Should I be? It's like, don't worry about the tactics. You need this strategic foundation as a starting point.
I don't think people are doing it because I don't think they know how to do it. But now they do know how to do it, because they can just contact you, and you'll help them to do that. Okay, and we're just missing the connection. We're one connection away from everything we need. And when we connect to that person, suddenly universes open up, because they open up worlds that we could never see before.
Right. And it's so perfect because there's so much room for everybody, right? Because my clients are going to be different. I know you've had other business coaches and other strategy people. It's like, there's so much beautiful space for everybody to win based on who they resonate with. And all these really cool messages that people are learning from your podcast, because I've been checking out the content, and it's good. Like, it's such good content. It's like, this becomes your hub for resources if you're looking to really develop your business, or your mindset, or your money mindset, just like you talked about. Because I heard that that podcast episode was really fantastic.
Fantastic. I mean, she's changed my life, so I can't recommend her enough. But I can't recommend you enough. So I love that you now become another place where people can bookmark to go there when they need something, when they need to understand what the category of oneness of their life is.
Yeah, that's great.
In every podcast that I have, I close with the same question, and I could talk for you forever. And I think I started out in the green room today, and I hope this is the beginning of conversations, not the end, because I love you. I love what you do. I love your honesty and your vulnerability. When you look out the window at the world you see out there, is this the world you always dreamed of giving over to your kids and your grandkids?
Not yet.
What is one thing that you think we could do? What is one place that you would like us to look at that would make that answer be a steadfast, oh my God, yes?
Stop playing small and feeling, scared of judgment and fear and all these things. Because at the end of the day, with the people that I work with, everybody, I love what Oprah said that one time. She said on an interview, and it stuck with me all the time. She's like, it doesn't matter if I interviewed Barack Obama, Beyonce, the most successful and prolific people in the world. When the camera is off, they look over to me quickly and say, how'd that go? Which means they just want to feel that they matter. Was I good enough? Was this okay? Did what I have to say matter? And at the end of the day, if more people understood that fundamental truth, that would be a world like you hand over, you leave, and you're like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. So if you do matter, right, which is the work that you're doing, this is the work that I'm doing. We're very much simpatico in the work that we're doing.
100%.
And that's what it is, you know?
So if there was one thing that they could do today that would help them do that, what would that be?
Just go. I always say, like, your subconscious, and I'm getting into heady stuff, will tell you innately where it is. Like, just tap into more of that intuition innately, asking yourself, leaning into the things that feel right. That is my true north. When I just feel into things, and anytime that I've ever compromised that, you could call it your God, your gut, God, your intuition, whatever. Just look more internally, because the answers are all inside. They really are.
I want to thank you so much. Tell us how people can get in touch with you.
Sure. They can go to pattydominguez.com, PattyDominguez. It'll be in the show notes. And if you're interested in positioning and how your business is faring, if you're in business, go to positioningquiz.com, and you can take my positioning quiz with a report on the back end. Let me know how I can serve.
And all of that will be in the show notes. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love when people who are complete strangers leave a conversation feeling like brothers and sisters.
Yeah, Danny, thank you so much. It's been such a joy.
My absolute honor. I want to just take a minute and summarize for people that know me a little bit some of the gems that I took out of this. All of us, and I don't know why that is yet. I'm hoping that my trip around the world will help me discover that in myself, that allows me to understand why we as a people do this together, by finding some of those people who don't do it. Put obstacles in the way of ourselves in our walk to greatness. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I heard so clearly from Patty is that we have X amount of time, and whether you believe we have thousands of lifetimes to do that or this one lifetime, it really doesn't matter. We have X amount of time. We were brought here on this earth not to carbon copy somebody else, because there would be no need for us to be here if that's all we were doing. We were never meant to do it the way someone else has done it. And yet so many teachers and so many gurus and so many people show the way as you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And they have all this beautiful terminology to make you feel like all you have to do is do what someone else has done and you'll be successful. And you will. You'll have financial success if you follow the way of people that have financial success. But what I see over and over again is so many people who do that, not everybody, but so many people who do that, end up having tons of financial success, but not fulfillment. Because we can never live somebody else's life and be fulfilled living our own. We have a life here that's meant to be our own. We were here, we were given a reason to come here. We have a purpose that when we live that purpose, we become thrilled with every breath we take. And to have the gift of somebody like Patty Dominguez here with us, who literally has given her life mission to help you find your category of oneness, one category of one, to be yourself, to know who you are in your own business, in your own body, in your own self. What a gift we share with each other. So I hope you will take advantage of all the show notes. I hope you'll listen to the things she says. I hope you'll call her up. I hope you'll email her. I hope you'll work with her. I hope you'll go to check out all our social media links, all listed below. And more than anything, from my heart to your heart, for those people who are listening, I want you to know how exquisite you are as a human being. And the silo that you paint around yourself and make people believe that that's who you are, and you paint that silo with what you want them to think you are, as beautiful as it is, doesn't even hold a candle to who you actually are. And when you have the courage and the vulnerability to stand without your wall, the world will be a better place because it will know you. And you're so beautiful. It's time for the world to know you. So Patty, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for the gift of your time on this show. For those people listening who know the Mosaic, if you like this episode on Apple Podcasts, please like it. Please write a review. And reach out to us, Patty, myself, other people that you see on the pod that you hear. This is a resource for us to connect to each other in a way we've never been able to do it before. With that, I thank you for the most valuable commodity of your life, which Patty already told us is your time. You've spent an hour of it with us, and I can't thank you enough for that. Until next time, Mosaic out.